The chamber was enormous. It stretched so far that Ambassador Yuan Shaili could not see where it ended. Thousands of seats rose in curved rows, climbing toward a ceiling lost in shadow. In each seat sat a representative from a different species. Some were tall and thin like dried branches, others were short and covered in thick scales. A few floated in special tanks filled with strange liquids. All of them had come here for one reason: to decide the fate of Earth. Yuan still alone on a small platform in the center of the chamber. She was 53 years old with black hair that was starting to turn gray at the edges. She wore a simple blue suit, no jewelry, no decoration. She had learned long ago that the aliens did not understand human symbols of status. To them, she was just another primitive from a young world. The Arbiter rose from its throne at the highest point of the chamber. It was a Seth Rani, a being made of living crystal. Light passed through its body and scattered into rainbows on the floor. When it spoke, its voice came from everywhere at once. The Enclave has heard the charges against the species known as humanity. The Arbiter said, we will now review them before the final vote. Yuan kept her face calm. She had been Earth's ambassador to the Orion Cygnes Compact for 12 years. She knew what was coming. She had fought against it for months. But some battles could not be won with words. A holographic display appeared in the air above her. Images of Earth, images of human cities, images of human ships. Charge 1. The Arbiter continued, humanity has refused to accept genetic harmonization. All member species must modify their biology to remove dangerous traits. Aggression, ambition, the drive to dominate. Humanity has refused this. Gift. Yuan thought they called it a gift. What they really meant was that they wanted to cut out the parts of human nature that made the other species uncomfortable. They wanted to make humans quiet, obedient, safe. Charge 2. Humanity has developed faster than light travel technology without compact approval. This is a violation of the technology sharing agreement. All new discoveries must be submitted to the Science Council for review. This charge was the real reason for the trial. Humanity had found a way to travel between stars that was faster and cheaper than anything the Compact had ever seen. The old species did not like that. They had controlled space travel for millions of years. They did not want a young species to challenge their power. Charge 3. Humanity has shown a pattern of aggressive expansion. In 200 years of membership, human colonies have spread to 47 worlds. This rate of growth is dangerous and destabilizing. UN almost laughed at this one. 47 worlds. In 200 years, the Compact controlled over 1 million systems, but when humans did it, it was dangerous. When the old species did it, it was natural. The Orbiter finished reading the charges. The chamber fell silent. Thousands of alien eyes looked down at the small human woman standing alone on the platform. Ambassador Yuan, the Orbiter, said, you may speak in defense of your species. Yuan took a breath. She had prepared this speech for weeks. She had practiced it until she knew every word by heart, but now standing here she realized it did not matter. The decision had already been made. This trial was just a show. Still, she would speak, not for the aliens who had already decided to destroy her people. She would speak for history, for the record, so that one day someone would know what really happened here. The Gatch says we are Dangerous because we will not change our nature, Yuan said. Her voice was steady. But what is our nature? We are curious. We explore, we build, we dream of things that do not yet exist, and then we make them real. Yes, we have darkness. In us, we have fought terrible wars. Among ourselves, we have done great evil, but we have also done great good. We have pulled ourselves up from caves and mud. We have reached the stars through our own effort, and now you want to take that from us. She paused and looked around the chamber. Some of the aliens looked uncomfortable. Most looked bored. You say genetic harmonization is a gift, but I have met harmonized species. I have seen what they become. They are peaceful, yes, but they have lost something. They have lost the fire that drives a species forward. They do not dream anymore. They do not create. They simply exist, following rules written by others. You want to do the same to us. You want to put out our fire. The arbiter made a sound that might have been a sigh. Ambassador, the conclave has heard these arguments before. Humanity's refusal to evolve beyond its primitive instincts is not strength, it is stubbornness. It is dangerous. The vote will proceed. Yuan nodded slowly. She had expected nothing else. Thought the voting took only a few minutes. Each representative pressed a button on their seat. A holographic counter appeared in the air, showing the results as they came in. Numbers climbed steadily. In favor of banishment, 3,847. Against, 153. The chamber erupted in noise. Aliens talked among themselves. Some made sounds of approval. A few very few looked troubled. The arbiter raised one crystalline arm. In silence returned. The decision is final. The species known as humanity is hereby banished from the Orion Cygni's compact. All human ships will return to their home system within 60 standard days. An interdiction field will be placed around the Sol system. No human vessel will be permitted to leave. No compact vessel will enter. Trade will cease. Communication will end. Humanity will be alone. Security drones floated down from the ceiling. They surrounded Yuan's platform, ready to escort her out. She did not move immediately. Instead, she looked up at the thousands of species who had just condemned her people to isolation, to slow death, to being forgotten. You have made a mistake, she said. Her voice was quiet now, but somehow it carried through the entire chamber. You think you are protecting the galaxy from us. You think that by locking us away, you will be safe, but you do not understand what you have done. Orbiter made an impatient gesture. Remove her. The drones moved closer. You stepped back, but she did not stop talking. We came to you in peace. We asked only to be accepted as we are. You refused. You demanded that we become something else, snort something less. And when we said no, you decided to throw us away like garbage. She was at the edge of the platform. Now the drones were almost touching her. You will regret making us remember what we are. Few of the aliens laughed. The sound echoed through the vast chamber. The primitives were always so dramatic, always making threats they could not keep. The drones took Yuan by the arms and lifted her off the platform. As she was carried toward the exit, she looked back one last time at the chamber full of species who had just signed their own doom. They did not know it yet, but they would learn. Humanity did not forget, and humanity did not forgive easily. Doors closed behind her, and the conclave moved on to other business. Matter of Earth was settled in a few years. No one would even remember that strange little species that had refused to be tamed, or so they thought. The interdiction field came down like a curtain falling on a stage. One moment, Earth was connected to the galaxy. Ships came and went, trade flowed, information traveled at the speed of light across thousands of systems. The next moment, there was nothing. Only silence, only darkness, only the cold stars looking down at a world that had been thrown away. In the first week, panic spread across the planet. People flooded the streets in every major city. Governments held emergency meetings. Military leaders demanded action. Scientists worked day and night to understand what had happened to them. The interdiction field was like nothing humanity had ever seen. It surrounded the entire solar system in an invisible bubble. Any ship that tried to pass through it simply stopped working. Engines died, computers crashed, life support failed. 3 ships tried to break through in the first month. None of them came back. Ambassador UN returned to Earth on the last transport allowed through the field. She walked off the ship and into a world that had changed forever. Reporters surrounded her, shouting questions. Cameras flashed in her face. Everyone wanted to know the same thing. Why had the galaxy abandoned them? She told them the truth. The Compact feared humanity. They feared what humans might become if they were allowed to grow, so they had decided to lock them away forever. The truth did not make things easier. In fact, it made them worse. Thought the first year was the hardest. Millions of people depended on medicines that came from other worlds. When the supply ran out, they died. Hospitals filled with patients that doctors could not save. Children with diseases that had been curable just months before now watched their parents weep as their bodies failed. The economy collapsed next. Earth had become dependent on galactic trade. Factories that made goods for export suddenly had no customers. Workers lost their jobs. Banks failed. Currencies became worthless. Some countries tried to hoard resources. Others tried to take what they needed by force. Old conflicts that have been quiet for generations suddenly exploded into violence. For a moment it seemed like humanity would destroy itself. The aliens would not need to wait long. Earth would tear itself apart. And the Compact could say they had been right all along. The primitives could not survive without guidance. But something strange happened. Something the aliens had not expected. Humanity remembered who they were. It started in small ways. Neighbors helped neighbors. Communities shared food and medicine. Scientists from enemy nations began talking to each other, sharing data, working together on solutions. Religious leaders and political rivals stood side by side and called for unity. In the 3rd year after the banishment, a movement began. It had no single leader, no official organization. It simply spread from person to person, city to city, nation to nation. The message was simple: we are alone now. We have no one but each other. If we fight among ourselves, we die. If we work together, we survive. By the 5th year, the Terran Continuity Council was formed. Every nation on Earth sent representatives. Every major corporation, every university, every religious group had a voice. For the first time in human history, the entire species agreed on a common goal: survival first, then Revenge. No one said the second part out loud, not yet, but everyone knew it. Every person on Earth carried the memory of what had been done to them. The aliens had tried to kill them. Slowly, they would not forget. Council began with the basics. Food production was reorganized. Vertical farms rose in every city. Oceans were carefully managed. Waste was recycled with perfect efficiency. Within 10 years, no one on Earth went hungry. Medicine came next. Human scientists studied the alien technologies they still had. They took them apart piece by piece. They learned how they worked. Then they built their own versions. Better versions. By the 20th year, human medicine had surpassed what the compact had given them, but the real breakthrough came in the 30th. Why? Dr. Elena Vasquez was a physicist who had spent her entire adult life studying the interdiction field. She had watched her mother die in the first year because a simple medication from off-world was no longer available. She had sworn then that she would find a way out. She would break the cage the aliens had built around her home. For 30 years she studied. She failed. She tried again. She failed again. Her colleagues told her it was impossible. The interdiction field was too advanced. Human technology was too primitive. She ignored them and kept working. On the night of her 61st birthday, alone in her laboratory, she found it, a tiny floor in the field, a frequency that the sensors did not monitor, a path through the barrier that no one had ever seen. She told no one except the council. They understood immediately what she had found. This was not just an escape route. This was a weapon. If humanity could pass through the field without being detected, they could go anywhere, do anything, and the compact would never know. The council made a decision that would change everything. They would not try to break out with a fleet of warships. They would not announce themselves to the galaxy. Instead, they would be silent, patient, invisible. For the next 20 years, humanity built in secret. They constructed ships that could slip through the flaw in the field like ghosts. They trained pilots and soldiers and spies. They gathered information about everything the compact was doing. By the 50th year of the banishment, humanity was ready to take the first step out of the darkness. Ambassador Yuan was 93 years old now. Her hair was white and her body was frail, but her mind was still sharp and her anger had not faded. She sat in the council chamber and watched as the first ghost ship prepared to launch. We are not going out there to fight, she told the crew. Not yet. We are going out there to learn, to watch, to wait. The galaxy thinks we are dead. Let them keep thinking that. When we finally show ourselves, it will be on our terms, not theirs. The ship slipped through the floor in the field without a sound. It vanished into the darkness between stars, carrying 12 humans who were about to become the first ghost of the solar system. Behind them, Earth continued to grow stronger. Factories produced ships and weapons. Schools trained the next generation of soldiers and scientists. And in every home, in every heart, the memory of what had been done to them burned like a fire that would never go out. The compact had made a terrible mistake. They had thought that isolation would break humanity, that loneliness would destroy them, that without the guidance of the older species, humans would fall back into barbarism. They were wrong. Humanity had not fallen. They had risen, and when they finally emerged from the darkness, they would be something the galaxy had never seen. Before, a species with nothing left to lose, a people with a grudge that had been sharpened for 50 years, a force that moved in silence and struck without warning. The stars had rejected them. Now they would make the stars regret it. Captain Torvin of the merchant vessel Bright Promise was having a very bad night. His ship had dropped out of hyperspace in the middle of nowhere, far from any star system, far from any help. The engines had simply stopped working. No warning, no alarm, just silence. His crew of 12 Cath traders were panicking. The Cath were a nervous species by nature, with large eyes and thin bodies that trembled when they were afraid. Right now they were very afraid. Captain, his first officer, said, "There is something on the sensors, a ship, but it has no engine signature. No heat. Nothing." Torvin looked at the screen. His first officer was right. There was definitely something out there, a shadow against the stars, a shape that should not exist. "Try to contact them," Torvin said. The communication officers sent a message, standard greeting, identification request, offer of assistance. There was no reply. The shadow moved closer. Torvin could see it now through the viewport. It was a ship, but like nothing he had ever seen. Gray metal, smooth curves, no markings of any kind. It looked like a predator from the deep ocean, all muscle and teeth hidden beneath a calm surface. Then a voice came through the speakers. It spoke in perfect Keth with no accent, no emotion. "Captain Torvin, we know what you are carrying." Torvin's blood went cold. The Bright Promise was officially merchant vessel. Unofficially it was carrying something else in its cargo hold. 63 beings from a conquered world. Slaves destined for the markets of the KTH home world. A profitable business that the compact officially banned but secretly allowed. "We are just traders," Torvin said. His voice shook. "We carry only legal goods. Open your cargo bay." The voice said, "Release your prisoners. Then you may leave." "I do not know what you are talking about. There are no prisoners on the ship." There was a long pause. Then the gray ship moved. It was fast, faster than anything Torvin had ever seen. One moment it was 100 m away. The next moment it was pressed against the Bright Promise like a lover. The hull groaned under the pressure. "We are not asking, Captain." The cargo bay doors opened by themselves. Torvin had not touched the controls. No one had. The gray ship had simply taken over his systems like they were toys. "How is this possible?" Torvin whispered. "Who are you?" The voice answered with a single word that made no sense, a word from a dead species that had been locked away decades ago. "Human." The slaves were taken. The Bright Promise was released. Torvin and his crew were left floating in the dark, their ship working again. Their cargo gone. They had been visited by ghosts, by shadows, by something that should not exist. When they reached port, Torvin reported what had happened. No one believed him. Humans were locked in their system. Everyone knew that the interdiction field was perfect. Nothing could get through. But the stories kept coming. A slaver convoy in the outer territories found destroyed. Every slave freed, every slaver dead. No witnesses, no evidence, just bodies floating in space. A pirate base that had operated for 300 years was attacked. The pirates were some of the most dangerous criminals in the galaxy. They had weapons, they had defenses, they had a fleet of warships. None of it mattered. The attack came at night. By morning, the base was empty. The pirates were Gone, their prisoners were gone, only. Their ships remained, drifting without power. A corrupt governor on a mining world was found dead in his office. He had been stealing from his workers for decades. The compact knew about it but did nothing because he paid the right bribes. Someone had decided that was not acceptable. His death was clean, professional, a single wound to the heart. No killer was ever found. The galaxy began to whisper about the gray fleet. No one knew where they came from. No one knew how many ships they had. Some said it was just one ship. Others said it was hundreds. The truth was worse than anyone imagined. By the 70th year of the banishment, humanity had built over 2,000 ghost ships. They operated in small groups, never more than a dozen at a time. They moved through the galaxy like shadows, never staying in one place for long. They watched, they learned, they waited. And they found all eyes. Compact was not as united as it appeared. Beneath the surface of galactic civilization, there was anger, resentment, pain. Many species had been conquered and absorbed by force. Many worlds had been stripped of resources. Many peoples have been told they were not good enough to join the great family of spacefaring races. Thought these forgotten ones remembered humanity. They remembered the small species that had refused to bend, that had been thrown away for daring to be different. They remembered, and they waited for the day when someone would stand against the compact. The gray fleet found them one by one. They approached carefully. They made no demands. They simply asked questions. Do you remember what was done to you? Do you want to do something about it? The answer was almost always yes. A network began to grow. Species that had never spoken to each other discovered they had common enemies. Worlds that had been isolated for generations found they were not alone. The gray fleet connected them all, shared information, shared resources, shared a single burning goal. Commander Jin Mei was one of the first ghost ship captains. She had been born on Earth 10 years after the banishment. She had never seen an alien in person until she was 40 years old. Now she was 60, and she had visited over 100 worlds that the compact controlled. We are not building an army, she told her crew. We are building a family of the forgotten, the rejected, the ones they compact threw away. When we finally move against them, we will not be alone. We will have friends in every corner of the galaxy. Her first officer, a young man named Chen Wei, looked at the star map on the screen. It showed thousands of points of light, each one representing a contact, an ally, a friend. When do we move? He asked. Jimmy smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had been waiting for a very long time. Soon. We have been watching them for 70 years. We know their secrets. We know their weaknesses. We know which of them are cruel and which are kind. We know everything. And what will we do with that knowledge? Jinmi turned to face him. Her eyes were hard. We will make them face what they have done. Every species that voted against us, every leader who laughed when we were thrown away, every monster who profited from the suffering of others. They think they are safe. They think no one is watching. They are wrong. She pointed at the star map. The compact has had 80 years of peace. They have grown fat and lazy. They have forgotten what it feels like to be afraid. We are going to remind them. In the darkness between stars, 2,000 gray ships moved without sound. They carried humans who had been born in exile. Humans who had never known a galaxy that welcomed them, humans who had been taught from birth that the universe had rejected them. They were patient, they were angry, and they were almost ready. The compact continued with its business. Trade flowed, politics continued. The old species argued about the same old problems. No one noticed the shadows gathering at the edges of their great civilization. Thought no one saw the storm that was about to break. Humanity had been waiting for 70 years. They could wait a little longer, but not much longer. The ghosts were ready to become real. The Day of Remembrance was the most important holiday in the compact. Every year, representatives from all 4,000 member species gathered on Sether Prime, the capital world, to celebrate their unity. It was a day of speeches and parades, a day when the galaxy reminded itself how wonderful it was, how peaceful, how civilized. The orbiter stood on its platform looking out at the massive crowd that filled the grand plaza. Millions of beings had come to see the celebration in person. Trillions more watched through screens and neural feeds across the galaxy. Every eye was on the orbiter as it prepared to give the traditional address. Today we celebrate 121 years of peace. The orbiter began. Its crystalline voice rang out across the plaza. 121 years since the last great conflict. 121 years of prosperity, cooperation, and unity. The compact stands as proof that different species can live together in harmony, that civilization can triumph over chaos, that the future belongs to those who choose peace. The crowd cheered, flags waved, music played. It was a perfect moment of galactic self-congratulation. Then every scream went dark. The music stopped. The flags froze in mid-wave. Confused murmur spread through the crowd. Technical problems were rare on Sether Prime. The capital had the best technology in the galaxy. Nothing ever went wrong. Then a face appeared on every screen, every neural feed, every communication channel in the compact. It was a human face. Old female. White hair pulled back from a lined face. Eyes that burned with decades of cold anger. The crowd gasped. Some screamed. Others simply stared in disbelief. Humans were supposed to be extinct, or at least locked away forever. Everyone knew that the interdiction field was perfect. Nothing could escape. But here was a human looking out at the galaxy that had thrown her away. Ambassador. HFY smiled. It was not a friendly smile. Hello, she said. You may remember me. 121 years ago, I stood before your conclave and begged you to let my people remain part of your civilization. You refused. You call us primitive, dangerous. You voted to lock us away in our own system forever. You thought you were protecting yourselves. You thought you were being wise. She paused. The galaxy held its breath. You were wrong. The view behind her changed. Instead of a simple room, the screen now showed space, and in that space was a fleet. Not a dozen ships, not 100. Thousands of vessels hung in the darkness, their gray holes catching the light of distant stars. Human ships, but not only human ships. The fleet was made up of vessels from 100 different species. Ships from worlds the compact had conquered, ships from peoples who had been told they were not good enough, ships from the forgotten and the angry. We did not come here alone, Ewan continued. We brought friends, species you threw away just like you threw us away, worlds you conquered and stripped of resources, peoples you told to be quiet and obey. They remember what you did to them, and they wanted to be here. When we delivered our message, in the Grand Plaza, panic was beginning to spread. Security forces tried to restore order. Leaders tried to reach their military commanders. Nothing worked. Every system was locked. Every communication was blocked. The orbiter's voice boomed out across the plaza. This is impossible. The interdiction field is perfect. No human ship could have escaped. Yuan's image turned to look directly at the orbiter. Your interdiction field has been broken. For 70 years, we have been moving freely through your space. Ever since we have watched you, we have learned everything about you, your secrets, your lies, your crimes. We know which of you are decent beings trying to do good, and we know which of you are monsters hiding behind civilized masks. She held up a data tablet. I have here a list of every slave trader operating in the compact, every corrupt official, every war criminal, every leader who has ordered the murder of innocents. We have evidence, we have proof, and today we are making it all public. Around the galaxy, screens flickered. Data began to flow. Files that had been buried for centuries suddenly appeared on public networks. Images, videos, documents. The dirty secrets of 1,000 governments were exposed for everyone to see. In the Grand Plaza, several representatives began to run. They pushed through the crowd trying to reach their ships. They did not get far. Gray uniformed humans appeared from nowhere, moving through the crowd like ghosts. They found the runners and stopped them with quiet efficiency. Do not be afraid, Yuan said. We did not come here to destroy you. If that was our goal, we would have done it already. Your military networks have been under our control for 30 years. Your weapons are useless. Your defenses are open. We could burn your worlds and scatter your fleets, but that is not what we want. She leaned forward and her old eyes burned with intensity. We want justice, real justice, not the kind you practice where the powerful do whatever they want and the weak suffer in silence. We want a galaxy where no species is thrown away because it is different, where no world is conquered for profit, where no being is sold as property. The arbiter tried to speak, but its systems were locked. It could only watch as this ancient human delivered her message. You have a choice, Yuan said. You can work with us to build something better, or you can resist and we will build it without you. Either way, things are going to change. The old compact is finished. What comes next is up to you. In orbit above Sephinar Prime, the combined fleet of humanity and its allies moved into position. They did not fire a single shot. They did not need to. Their presence was message enough. Admiral Chun Wei stood on the bridge of the flagship watching the planet below. He was 72 years old now. He had spent his entire life preparing for this moment. First as a student, learning everything about the compact, then as a soldier, training for a war that might never come, then as a commander leading ghost ships through enemy space. Admiral, his communications officer, said, "We are receiving surrender signals from the compact fleet. They are standing down." Chumwee nodded. He had expected this. The compact's military had never faced a real enemy. They had grown soft over centuries of peace. They did not know how to fight against an opponent who was willing to die. Tell them to hold their positions. No ship is to move until we give permission. He turned to look at the main screen where Yuan's face still appeared. She was finishing her speech. 121 years ago, you tried to make us less than human. You tried to erase everything that made us who we are. You failed, we survived, we grew stronger. And now we are here to make our rules clear. She held up one hand and counted on her fingers. Rule 1: no species will be banished or isolated. Every world that wants to participate in galactic civilization will be welcome. Rule 2: slavery is finished. Every being in the compact will be free. No exceptions. Rule 3: genetic harmonization will never be forced on anyone. Species have the right to be what they are. Rule 4: the forgotten will be remembered. Every wrong will be addressed. Every victim will have justice. She lowered her hand and looked directly into the camera. These are not requests. These are not suggestions. These are the rules. You will follow them or you will face us, and we have had 121 years to prepare for that fight. The transmission ended. The screens returned to normal. The galaxy sat in stunned silence. On Stefan Prime, the arbiter finally found its voice. This is an act of war, it said. We will not submit to threats from primitives. But even as it spoke, it knew the truth. The compact's military was useless. Their systems were compromised. Their secrets were exposed. They had no leverage, no cards to play. The humans had won. Without firing a single shot, Admiral Chenwei watched the chaos on the planet below and allowed himself a small smile. This was just the beginning. There was still so much work to do, but they had done the impossible. They had made the galaxy listened on. Now they would make it change. 1 year had passed since the day of revelation. 1 year since humanity had stepped out of the shadows and shown the galaxy what they had become. 1 year of chaos, confusion, and change. The old conclave chamber looked different now. The high seats where powerful species had once looked down on lesser beings were gone. In their place was a circular arrangement where every representative sat at the same level. No one was above anyone else. No one was below. Admiral Chuni walked into the chamber. Alone, he wore a simple gray uniform with no medals or decorations. His hair was white now, his face lined with age and worry, but his eyes were sharp and his step was steady. The representatives watched him approach. 4,000 species, 4,000 worlds, 4,000 different forms of life, all waiting to hear what humanity would do with the power it had seized. Some expected revenge. After what had been done to Earth, no one would blame the humans for wanting blood. The old leaders had been exposed as criminals. The systems that had oppressed billions were crumbling. It would be so easy to become conquerors, to rule the galaxy. With an iron fist, Chinwei stepped onto the central platform. He looked around at the assembled species, taking a moment to meet as many eyes as he could. I know what you are expecting, he said. His voice was calm and clear. You are expecting us to announce that humanity is in charge now, that we will rule you as you once ruled others, that we will take revenge for what was done to us. He shook his head slowly. You're wrong, murmurs spread through the chamber. Confusion, surprise, relief. Humanity as at 122 years to think about what we want. Kai continued. In the darkness of our exile, we had time to look at ourselves, to see our own history, to remember all the Times we have fallen into the trap of empire of domination, of becoming the thing we hated. He paused, gathering his thoughts. We decided that we would not make that mistake again. We did not break out of our cage to build a bigger cage for others. We did not survive isolation to become isolators. We are not interested in ruling the galaxy. We are interested in changing it. The arbiter who had been forced to remain as a witness made a sound of disbelief. Then what do you want? You have the power to do anything. Why would you give it up? Chen Wei turned to face the crystalline being. Because power is not the point. Justice is the point. Freedom is the point. Building something better than what came before is the point. He turned back to the assembly. We have had a year to work with many of you too. Listen to your concerns to understand what you want for your worlds and your peoples. Today we present a proposal for a new compact, a new way of living. Together among the stars, a holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber, showing a document that had been written over months of difficult negotiations. First, membership is open to all. No species will be denied a voice because of their biology, their psychology, or their level of development. The young and the old will stand together as equals. Representatives from species that have been denied membership for centuries lean forward with hope in their eyes. Second, genetic modification will be a choice, never a requirement. If a species want to change itself, that is their right. If they want to remain as they are, that is also their right. No one will be forced to become something other than what they are. The harmonized species shifted uncomfortably. Many of them had forgotten why they had changed themselves in the first place. The new rule made them wonder what they had lost. Third, the institution of slavery is permanently abolished. Every being in the galaxy is free. Those who have been held as property will be released immediately. Those who held them will face justice. This was the hardest rule. Many economies depended on slave labor. Many powerful individuals had built their fortunes on the backs of enslaved peoples, but the Gray Fleet had made it clear that this point was non-negotiable. Fourth, crimes against sapient beings will not be forgotten or forgiven. We have spent decades gathering evidence. Every war criminal, every slave trader, every corrupt leader who has caused suffering will be brought to justice. There will be trials, there will be consequences, but there will also be fairness. Even monsters deserve the chance to defend themselves. Several representatives looked nervous. They knew their names were on the list as humanity had compiled. They knew their time was running out. Fifth, the resources of the galaxy will be shared. Worlds that have been stripped of wealth will receive help to rebuild. Species that have been kept in poverty will be given the chance to grow. We will not allow some to feast while others starve. Chuni lowered his hand and looked around the chamber. These are the foundations of the new compact. They are not perfect. No system created by thinking beings can be perfect, but they are better than what came before. They offer hope instead of fear, freedom instead of chains, justice instead of power. He took a deep breath. Humanity could have chosen revenge. We had every right to hate you. Many of us still do, but we decided that hate was not enough to build a future on. We decided that we wanted something more. We wanted to be the species that was thrown into darkness and came out carrying light. The chamber was silent. The representatives looked at each other, at the humans stationed around the room, at the document floating in the air. Before them, finally, a representative from one of the younger species stood up. She was small with green skin and large eyes. Her world had been conquered 300 years ago. Her people had never had a voice in the conclave. I believe them, she said. Her voice was quiet but clear. I have seen what they have done this past year. They freed my grandmother from a slave market on Keth Prime. They arrested the governor who had been stealing from my world for decades. They asked us what we wanted and actually listened to the answer. She looked at Cheney. I vote yes. Another representative stood, then another. One by one, species that had been oppressed, ignored, and forgotten rose to their feet. The old powers hesitated. They had much to lose under the new system, their privileges, their wealth, their control. But they also saw the gray fleet hanging in orbit. They saw the allies that humanity had gathered. They understood that resistance would be futile and bloody. One by one, they voted yes. As well, when the count was finished, the result was unanimous. The new compact was approved. Chen Wei allowed himself a small smile. Then let us begin the work of building something worthy of the galaxy we want to live in. Ambassador Yuan Shiali watched the proceedings from her quarters on the flagship. She was too old to attend in person, too weak to stand for long, but she had seen everything through the live feed. Her aide, a young woman named Liu Min, stood beside her. We did it. Lemon said, we actually did it. Yuan nodded slowly. We did, but this is only the beginning. The hard part comes now. Building is always harder than destroying. Do you think we can do it? Can we really change a galaxy? Yuan was quiet for a long moment. She thought about all the years of exile, all the suffering, all the people who had died, so that this moment could happen. I do not know, she said honestly. Humans are not angels. We have done terrible things. In our history, we may do terrible things again, but I believe we have a chance to be better than we were, a chance to show the universe that the things they feared in us, our stubbornness, our anger, our refusal to give up, those things can be used for good as well as evil. She looked at the stars through her window. They threw us away because we were different. They thought the difference made us dangerous. They were right. We are dangerous, but not in the way they feared. We are dangerous to tyrants, dangerous to slavers, dangerous to anyone who thinks the powerful have the right to crush the weak. She closed her eyes. That is what it means to be human. Not that we are better than other species, not that we are stronger or smarter or more noble, just that we refuse to stay down when we are pushed. We refuse to accept that things cannot change. We refuse to believe that the darkness is forever. Liu Min wiped a tear from her eye. Is there anything you want me to tell them? Any message for the new compact? Yuan thought for a moment, then she smiled, the first real smile she had shown in years. Tell them we are glad to be back. Tell them we look forward to working with them, and tell them, she paused, choosing her words carefully, tell them that humanity holds no grudges. The past is past. What matters now is the future we build together. Below, on the surface of Sethna Prime, humans walked freely among the species that had once cast them out. They were not conquerors. They were not masters. They were simply people doing the hard work of building a better Tomorrow, the galaxy had learned a lesson it would never forget. The small species from the third planet of an ordinary star had been thrown into darkness. They had been abandoned, forgotten, left to die. And they had come back to save everyone. That was the human way.